Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Haruko. We're in the midst of a sermon series called The Spirituality of ... We'll be looking at the spirituality of pets, the spirituality of music. We looked at the spirituality of work. Everyone has their own definition of spirituality. Here's one I like from Frederick Buechner, a Presbyterian pastor and gifted writer who died last month at the age of 96. He says, pay attention to the things that bring a tear to your eye or a lump to your throat, because they are signs that the holy is drawing near. Noticing when the holy is drawing near, that's one of the ways to talk about spirituality. Last Sunday was the spirituality of forgiveness. We saw in Jesus' story of the prodigal son how the responsible elder son did what was expected of him, but he wound up being resentful when his younger brother, who'd left home and been a jerk, was greeted with open arms by his father as if nothing had happened. The father even threw a welcome home party for him. Jesus said all prodigal and all elder sons and daughters are invited to God's party of grace. But sometimes unresolved anger and unforgiveness can keep us away from that party of grace. Forgiveness frees us to give and receive love from others and from God. In the God sighting, after the sermon, Donna started out with a disclaimer. When it comes to forgiveness, she said, I'm no expert. I'm still learning. And then she told us how forgiving a relative helped heal her heart and made her feel more positive toward them when she saw them. Then Aki told us about losing a friend in the terrorist attack on the Pentagon on 9/11. He said he wasn't sure if his friend's wife could forgive the terrorist who killed her husband. And then Tia told us how angry she was that it was her young classmates who had to go fight in the war after 9/11. Many of them didn't make it home, she said, and those who did come back were pretty messed up. Tia said she admired Donna's ability to forgive, but she's not quite there yet. I know that some of us are struggling with the idea of forgiveness in our own lives, and I didn't just want to leave you hanging. Forgiveness on the spiritual journey isn't a Nike kind of thing, just do it. It may be a process that takes time. Jesus tells us to forgive and then offers to give us help to do that, which brings us to today's Spirituality of Forgiveness, part 2. Listen now to the word of God in the 18th chapter of Matthew. Then Peter got up the nerve to ask, Master, how many times do I forgive a brother or sister who hurts me? 7? Jesus replied, 7? Hardly. Try 70 times 7. This is God's word for us, God's people. Thanks be to God. In the passage in Matthew, right after Jesus and Peter have this talk about how many times we're supposed to forgive someone who hurts us, Jesus tells a story, as he often does, to illustrate what he's talking about. He tells a story about a king who decided to square up accounts with his servants. One servant asked the king for mercy and got a huge debt forgiven. But on his way out of the palace, he ran into a guy who owed him $5. He grabbed him right by the throat and said, "Pay up now." The man asked for a few more days to pay, but the guy refused, had him arrested and thrown into jail. The king heard about it and he was furious. He got his tough guys to work him over a little bit because he refused to show mercy, and he kept hammering on him until he paid the entire debt. Jesus said, "That's exactly what my Father in heaven is going to do to each of you who doesn't forgive anyone who asks for mercy." Wow, that's a pretty sobering response. What do you do when you forgive someone who hurts you? What goes on? When is forgiveness necessary? What should you expect it to feel like? What is forgiving? If you live long enough, chances are you'll be hurt by someone you counted on as a friend, or maybe a family member. That kind of hurt rankles inside us. Others might think it's not that big of a deal, but we know better. After all, we're the ones who are feeling it. If you're like me, you may let that hurt fester and grow until it stifles your joy. When that happens, forgiveness is needed. If we travel through life long enough, we're going to experience things that are unfair. We may experience hate, injustice, disappointment, even betrayal. Some of us will suffer terribly due to evil in the world. Which makes me wonder, can evil be forgiven? Our culture says to fight evil through justice and might. The way we combat evil is by making sure people get what's coming to them. You attack me, I'll attack you back harder. Fair is fair. But that just perpetuates the harm cycle. When someone hurts us, we're linked to that harm, connected to that mistreatment, chained to it. We know all our anger and fear and resentment doesn't free us at all. It keeps us chained. Evil persists. Brokenness prevails. Forgiveness interrupts that cycle. Forgiveness isn't about being nice or being a doormat. Lutheran pastor Nadia Bowles-Weber says, when someone harms us, holding on to that anger and the harm done to us doesn't get rid of the hurt. Seeking retaliation or revenge doesn't actually reduce the evil in the world. It may actually add to it. If we're not careful, we can absorb the worst of our enemy and on some level actually start to become like them. But isn't forgiving over and over, that 70 times 7 number Jesus came up with, isn't that just saying I'm okay with it? Maybe forgiveness is actually just the opposite of saying what someone has done is okay. It's saying it's so not okay that I'm not going to absorb it anymore. I simply won't be tied to it. It's like saying what you did was so not okay, I refuse to be connected to it anymore. What if forgiveness, instead of being a wimpy way of saying, it's okay, no harm, no foul, forgiveness is actually a way of wielding bolt cutters and snapping the chain that links us. Richard Rohr, a Franciscan priest and founder of the Center for Contemplation and Action in New Mexico, reminds us we can tell a lot by what a person does with their suffering. Do they transmit it or do they transform it? While it's true, God may not prevent evil, and we may never fully understand why. God does have a way of combating evil. It's not punishment, it's not retaliation, fear, or anger. It's forgiveness. Forgiveness is God's way of combating evil. At Calvary, we see God in Jesus Christ entering deeply into the suffering caused by human evil and saying, this ends here. I will not transmit it. God's forgiveness is like those giant bolt cutters. God sets us free. And then God says, go and do likewise. Forgive as you have been forgiven. Cut others loose too. Jesus commands it. It's not a suggestion for us. Jesus commands us to forgive just as Jesus commands us to love. Our willingness to forgive can set us free. That's why we need to forgive. And when it comes to forgiveness, we don't go it alone. Jesus offers to help us. His gift of ongoing forgiving love in our lives inspires and empowers us to forgive others and forgive ourselves. Just a note as we talk about forgiveness. When we talk about forgiving someone 70 times 7 times, that's not at all to be implied that if someone is abusing you or harming you verbally, physically, bothering you in any way that's abuse, that you're to stay there and take it. That's not at all what I'm saying. We have to take care of ourselves. We can forgive somebody from a distance over time, but it's not saying you have to stay there, not at all. God abhors abuse and violence. God says, get out. I will help you. I just want to make sure you don't hear it as an excuse for someone to harm you. Forgiveness is not that. Forgiveness sets our souls free. On your bulletin today, there's a guide for forgiveness. I asked Chris to print it for us so you could take it home, because forgiveness is often a process in our lives. There's some scripture verses that go with it that I invite you to take a look at. But I invite you, if forgiveness is something that's needing to happen in your life, to take a look and go step by step, to go to a quiet place and to go through those steps of asking Jesus to help you forgive, to be made willing to forgive, and then to forgive. It's not a trick. It's not magic. It's a spiritual act. It's a powerful act. It's a freedom fighting act, because freedom comes when we are forgiven by God and when we forgive others. If you're having trouble with forgiveness, don't worry, you've got good company. We're all there. But we do know it's something that God will help us with. Please feel free to talk to me or to others who will encourage you to forgive. Maybe you're not there yet. Maybe you just need someone to listen. But I pray that we'll all get to that place where we're willing to be made willing to forgive, because we're the ones who are harmed by those feelings of hatred, by the grudges, by the hostility that festers and wounds us over time. God uses forgiveness to help heal those memories and turn back the flow of pain and set us free. It may take a long time. With God's help, may we be willing to be made willing to forgive. For our God sighting today, I want to bring a fable by Lou Smedes, who wrote a book called Forgive and Forget, Healing the Hurts We Don't Deserve. He was my ethics professor at seminary, a very wise, down-to-earth man. He was from Holland. He says, in the village of Fokken in innermost Friesland, there lived a long, thin baker named Falk, a righteous man with a long, thin chin and a long, thin nose. He was so upright that he seemed to spray righteousness from his thin lips over everyone who came near him. So the people of Fokken preferred to stay away from him. Falk's wife, Hilda, was short and round. She didn't keep people at bay with righteousness. Her soft roundness seemed to invite them instead to come near to her in order to share the warm cheer of her open heart. Hilda respected her righteous husband and loved him too, as much as he allowed her. But her heart ached for something more from him than his worthy righteousness. And there in the bed of her need lay the seed of sadness. One morning, having worked since dawn to knead his dough for the ovens, Falk came home and found a stranger in his bedroom. Hilda's adultery soon became the talk of the tavern and the scandal of the congregation. Everyone assumed that Falk would cast Hilda out of his house, so righteous was he. He surprised everyone by keeping Hilda as his wife, saying he forgave her as a good book said he should. In his heart of hearts, however, Falk could not forgive Hilda for bringing shame to his name. Whenever he thought about her, his feelings toward her were angry and hard. He despised her. When it came right down to it, he hated her for betraying him after he'd been so good and faithful a husband to her. He only pretended to forgive Hilda so he could punish her with his righteous mercy. But his fakery did not sit well in heaven. So each time that he would feel his secret hatred toward Hilda, an angel came to him and dropped a small pebble, hardly the size of a shirt button, into his heart. Each time a pebble dropped, he would feel a stab of pain like the moment he felt when he came on Hilda in the bedroom. Thus he hated her all the more. His hate brought him pain, and his pain made him hate. The pebbles multiplied, and his heart grew weary from the weight of them. So heavy that the top half of his body bent forward so far he had to strain his neck upward in order to see straight ahead. Weary with hurt, he began to wish he were dead. The angel who dropped the pebbles into his heart came to him one night and told him how he could be healed of his hurt. There was one remedy, he said, only one for the hurt of a wounded heart. He would need the miracle of the magic eyes. He would need eyes that would look back to the beginning of his hurt and see Hilda not as a wife who betrayed him, but a woman who needed him. Only a new way of looking at things through the magic eyes could heal the hurt flowing from the wounds of yesterday. Falk protested. Nothing can change the past, he said. Hilda is guilty, a fact not even an angel can change. Yes, poor hurting man, you're right, the angel said. You cannot change the past. You can only heal the hurt that comes to you from the past. And you can heal it only with a vision of the magic eyes. How can I get your magic eyes? Pouted Falk. Only ask, desiring as you ask, and they will be given to you. Each time you see Hilda through your new eyes, one pebble will be lifted from your aching heart. Falk could not ask at once, for he had grown to love his hatred. But the pain of his heart finally drove him to want and to ask for the magic eyes that the angel had promised. So he asked, and the angel gave. Soon Hilda began to change in front of his eyes, wonderfully and mysteriously. He began to see her as a needy woman who loved him, instead of a wicked woman who betrayed him. The angel kept his promise. He lifted the pebbles from Falk's heart, one by one, though it took a long time to take them all away. He gradually felt his heart grow lighter. He began to walk straight again. Somehow, his nose and his chin seemed less thin and sharp than before. He invited Hilda to come into his heart again, and she came. And together they began again a journey into their second season of humble joy. Shall we pray? Lord, help us to remember the power of forgiveness to heal our hearts. Help us to forgive whoever we need to forgive. Sometimes the pain makes it hard, almost impossible to forgive. Help us be willing to be made willing to forgive. Fill our hearts with forgiveness. Give us all the desire and the strength to get to a more loving, more graceful, more forgiving place. In the name of your Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen.